As a photographer, have you ever considered becoming a photographic judge, but wondered what qualifications do you require to become a judge? Or maybe you've entered a photographic competition and seen in the advertising that it's judged by highly experienced and trained judges and wondered what training the judges go through. If so, stick around and we'll answer those questions. Hi, my name is Gary Smith from Snap Judgment Photography, the home of photographic judges training. Here we will discuss all things concerned with photography, but from a photographic judge's point of view. So what training or what qualifications do judges require? Since I'm coming to you from Victoria, Australia, why don't we jump onto the Victorian Association of Photographic Societies website. This is better known as VAPS. Here we are on the VAPS website, and as you can see, you can find this in fact yourself on vaps.org.au and under Camera Clubs, Victorian Judges, and you will then find a link to becoming a judge. Here there are 4 items, any one of which will get you onto the Victorian Judges list. And that is to have attended a judging seminar run by various camera clubs in 2013, or the VAPS courses in 2014 and 15. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd be very surprised if anyone can remember information presented to them a decade ago. I would also be very surprised if there's any attendance records, so there's no proof that you've actually attended the courses. And it also speaks to me that VAPS believes that the photography has not changed in 10 years. Now, knowing some of the people on the committee, I know that this is not so, but that's what this website is telling me. So these are not very stringent requirements to become a judge. Let's look at the next one. That you've completed either a level 1 or a level 2 judges training course run by the APJA. Now, having been the training director until fairly recently for the APJA, I want to tell you that these courses are very basic, but don't take my word for it. Let's jump onto the APJA website and have a look. Here under their training syllabus breakdown, you can see that both the level 1 and the level 2 are standalone courses and require no prerequisites. In level 1, you'll have a look at compositional elements, scoring. You'll get a judging approach for land and seascapes, travel photography and architecture. You'll have a bit on public speaking, and that's about it. At level 2, you'll get an introduction to art and design elements, so a bit more in depth. Approaches to judging a set subject. Technical aspects of judging digital and print images. And you'll also get a view on the some of the software used by some clubs, such as Visual Pursuits and My Photo Club. Again, not a very high level. At this level, they're not even going into things like ethics, copyright, or any of the in-depth subjects that photography judges really need. So let's go back to the VAPS website and have a look at the last requirement. Here we are on the VAPS website again, with the last requirement being that you have judged either inside or outside of your club within the last 12 months. It doesn't say how many times, so I'm assuming once is enough. It doesn't even say how good or bad the judging was. No feedback from the people being judged or the club being judged. Simply that evidence is required of the judging having occurred. Also on this page, there's no requirement for the judges or the prospective judges to provide a portfolio so that people can see that they can at least take halfway decent photos. No, this is not a high qualification. So, what do other places do? Now here I must commend VAPS for the courage to put their requirements up on their website. Most other state-based or national-based organisations don't put the website up, so you as a photographer will need to go digging with your particular state or national body. Overseas, again, it's not very well publicised and is difficult to find, such as PSA and FIAP do not advertise what qualifications you need to be a judge. And in fact, right around the world, you don't need any qualifications. At this point, if you're a competition steward for a camera club, you're probably thinking, maybe I should use professional photographer. Well, all a professional photographer will do is give you the assurance that at least they can take good photos. Their knowledge base is not necessarily there. After all, to become a professional photographer, you don't need a diploma or a degree of any description. You just need to be able to pick up a camera and take a decent photo. You don't even have to know how you've taken a decent photo. So you just need to be able to do so. And in my experience, I've found there's no difference between an amateur photographer who's a judge and a professional photographer who's a judge. You get good and bad judges from both areas. So no, it doesn't necessarily have to pay to go and get a professional photographer to judge your clubs. But what about training? What training do judges really get or really need? Well, if you consider what happens in international competitions, if we look at an international open competition, you're going to find that the most awarded genre is portraits. And yet landscapes constitute the largest genre in open competitions. But portraits get most of the awards. Now why is this? It's because of a thing called bias. With bias and with humans, we have a part of our brain called the facial fusiform area. And it is this part of our brain that requires humans or makes humans look for predator and prey or recognize predator and prey and friend and foe. It's what makes humans in images carry the greatest visual weight. It's why judges often want to see people's eyes. And when they do see the eyes, they want the eyes to be sharp. It's all a bias caused by the facial fusiform area. But I'm sure if you've been in a camera club for more than a few months, you would have come across judges that will award points for black and white images because they like black and white photography. Or the standing joke in camera clubs, the judge that likes cats because they award cat images. You get the reverse of that, where you have judges that will mark an image down because it's got a white vignette and they do not like white vignettes. Or it could be that a judge marks an image down because the image hasn't come up to the standard of the judges for the genre that the judge is particularly good at. So bias, and there's many different types of bias, and we see them in all of our daily lives, and in fact bias helps us in our daily life. But it has no place in photographic judging, but sadly it is there. So judges at all levels need to be able to understand their bias and how their bias will affect the judging process. Now I just use the term judging levels. And what a lot of people, photographers and judges, don't realise, there's two levels of judging. There's the basic level and there's the advanced level. At basic level, a judge merely ranks the images from first to last, and then will apply the top couple of percent with awards. Now, it could be first, second, or third, highly commended, merits, whatever the club or the competition requires. This is basic judging, and this is what occurs at both national and international levels. Now, the judge at those levels will be working with a panel of 3 to 5 judges, and the judges under pressure, so they will need to be able to evaluate an image very, very, very quickly. But it's only an evaluation. It's not an in-depth analysis. It's merely an evaluation, and then to be able to provide a point score for that image. Depending upon the competition, a judge may have as little as a few seconds to make that decision. So it is a very pressure type situation for the judge to work in, and they've got to be able to work in that type of pressure. But at the advanced level, not only the judges need to know bias that the basic judge needed, at the advanced level, the judge is also providing educational feedback for the photographer. And as such, we're talking about an educational or a teaching function. Now, for many decades, governments and organisations have been pushing at our society that anyone can teach. We've often heard this type of commentary that anyone can teach, but does it actually happen in practice? And yes, it does. When I was teaching in TAFE back during the last Ice Age, the minimum requirement to teach in TAFE in Victoria was a 3-year university diploma, even if you wanted to teach part-time. That was your minimum requirement. Nowadays, it's a 9-day certificate 4. And most of that time is spent on course administration and not on teaching. Universities are no better. At university, to become a university lecturer, you require high-level industry qualifications, yes, but teaching qualifications is not mandatory. It might be desirable, but it's not mandatory. So you don't really need that qualification to teach. And we see this in other organisations as well. Oh, you're good at your job, you can teach it. Failing to understand that people need to be shown how to teach. I've seen tutorials given by camera club members, and many of them are not very good and are almost a disservice to a lot of the photographers because they don't cover the basics. They don't cover what the photographers need to know. I hope that makes sense. But it's something that we as photographic judges should be aware of. So at the advanced level, not only do we need to know how to teach, we also need to know how to give feedback. Now, I've seen judges with camera club competitions will stand up in front of the audience and talk about an image and say, yep, I love the leading lines, I love this, I love that, I love the other. I'll give this 11 points. Next image, oh, I love the palette, I love this, I love that. I'll give this image 13 points. And they fail to give any reason why or any advice on how to improve that image. This is poor judging at this level, at the advanced level, at the camera club level, because it's not helping the photographer. And that's what camera club judging is all about. In fact, that is one of the strengths of the camera club, that the photographers in the camera club can get feedback from someone who is supposed to know about photography. And this is an important function within a club, but it's often misunderstood. So at the advanced level, not only do we need that, we also need to understand at a greater depth photography. Because if we're trying to advise photographers, we need to come from a position where we understand the technology of photography. When you look at many websites taken from a photographer's point of view, you often see when they're talking about sharpening or getting a sharp image, the 6 things you need to do to get a sharp image, or the 10 things or the 12 things you need to do to get a sharp image. And yet, if you delve into sharpness, apart from the fact that sharpness is not readily definable until you go down to the pixel level and talk about areas, disks and circles of confusion, there are 37 different separate items that affect the sharpness of your image. And 26 of them are affected by the photographer at the point of pressing that shutter button. You also see websites that will say, oh, once you press the shutter button, you can't affect the sharpness of your image, which is not exactly true. There is a thing called actuance, which is what you affect during editing, and it affects the appearance of the sharpness of your image. So we as judges need to understand this so that we can pass this information on to the photographers. We need to actually understand photography at a much greater depth. Hey, that's good for us as judges, because by understanding photography at a greater depth, forcing us to do the research to understand this information makes us better photographers. I remember when I was going through university lecturers would say to us, to improve your photography, you need to look at as many images as you can. Typically, it was poor communication, because if I walk through a gallery and I look at images and say, yep, I like this, don't like that, like this, don't like that, all it is doing is reinforcing my bias and my subjectivity. It's not teaching me any more about photography. What the lecturers actually meant was that to improve my photography, I should analyse as many images as I can. And by analysing means I need to break down images. I need to understand from areas such as Gestalt theory and many others. I need to understand aesthetics and break that down so that I can understand how the master photographers and indeed the master painters created their art, so that I can then create my art with a better understanding. And that's what I need to do as a judge. That's what all judges should be doing. But sadly, not all judges have the ability to pass on this information. So, as a judge, I need to understand not only about passing, about the information at a greater depth, I need to be able to understand and pass on this information. So I need to be able to give feedback. And there's many, many different ways of giving feedback to people. Not just one, and in Victoria you'll often find there's only many judges will use one method. It makes it boring for the people listening to this. It also makes it less enticing for the judge or for the photographer to listen to you as the judge and as the person who's standing up and saying, hey, I know something about photography, I'm trying to help you. And so this is something we need as judges to understand. But often judges are asked to judge other mediums, such as audiovisual or photo books. And take photo books, for example. I know there was a course run by a well-known photographer and was quite a good but very limited course. It was good from the photographic point of view, but it did not go into the idea of looking at how the book was put together. It just assumed that knowledge. For instance, the binding of a book will determine how the book is used. Does a book need end papers? What type of binding does it have? What size? How are you going to use the book? What is the font you're going to use in a book if you're going to use font? Who is going to be the user of that book? These are the things that you need to understand when you're judging a book, such as a photo book. And it's something that most judges are not aware of. So all these areas that judges need training on are vitally important to you, the photographer, and to you, the photographic judge as well. Excuse me. On this channel, I hope to discuss these issues in detail. For instance, artificial intelligence is something that is very big at the moment and has a lot of discussion. And it's something I will be discussing in a future video. As is sharpening, as is composition. And we look at composition in the basic formats of the rule of thirds or the Fibonacci spiral. Not understanding there's much more to composition than those two rules. We also need to understand the trends within not only photography but art in general. So all these things we will be discussing in future videos. So I would like to ask you to subscribe to this channel, particularly if you've liked what you've heard so far. Please subscribe, and also please leave a comment down below. The comments are very, very important, as I will be relying on those to understand what you, the photographer, and you, the prospective photographic judge, and you, the practicing photographic judge, would like to learn more about. So, until next time, keep on snapping.